Welcome to Fight Club 24/7. My name's Johnny Rashman. Right, let's get straight into it. Spence versus Bud Crawford. Right? Will we see this fight happen next? Absolutely not, in my opinion. And I'm going to explain why. I've watched boxing for many years, over 25 years, right? I've seen everything. Absolutely everything. From fighters being built up, politics, fights not happening, fights happening. I've seen it all, right? So my opinion isn't based on hype or what a promoter or manager is telling me. It's years of experience of watching the sport, understanding the sport, right? So I don't bullshit people and I don't buy into hype. I see what's in front of my eyes. Now, I questioned if Spence wanted the fight. Fair play, I think he's proved me wrong. He's come out and he says, I want the Bud fight next. That's what he said, right? However, we all know that boxing has had tremendous difficulties with fights being made, right? It's a tale as old as time. It's happened throughout boxing history where there's a fighter who earns a lot of money, right? And there's a rival fighter in this division that might not bring as much to the table commercially, but he's just as dangerous, if not better, and the fights don't get made for whatever reason. And this is what's happening, right? So you've got to look at the overall picture here. A lot of Spence's fans are coming out saying, this is what he said he was going to do. He was going to collect all the belts, right? And he's going to fight for the undisputed. But if you look at a lot of the interviews before fight week, it wasn't I want Bud. It was I'm going to collect the belt. I'm going to collect the belt. Now I think Spence has been forced into saying he wants Bud, right? Because there's a lot of pressure now, and now he's saying he wants Bud. But if you look at the narrative, he might fight for the undisputed belts. It just might not be against Bud. And to be honest with you, it doesn't look like that's a fight that's being marinated, right? It doesn't. If you look at an interview from PBC executive in January, I'll pull it up here, you can see it. You can see quite clearly he's blaming it on the economics. So you don't really want to insult a guy like Terence Crawford, who's a tremendous talent. I'm not taking anything away from his talent, but he hasn't been built into a pay-per-view star. I'm not saying that to throw shade at the guy, but you've got to go on his track record and what he's done in the pay-per-view fights he's been involved in. Right. So that's a narrative. That's a narrative. They're saying Bud doesn't bring anything commercially, basically. And to be honest, they have got a point, right? Bud isn't great at self-promotion, but he is that good of a talent that he can get away with it to a certain extent because he's a generational talent. He really is. But that's the narrative. What has happened in the last few months that suggests that Bud's profile has got bigger, right? What's happened? Spence beating you guys doesn't make Bud's profile go higher. It makes the fight in more demand, but when we're talking numbers, we're still in the same place. So nothing has changed in that aspect. And when you're looking at a big fight, you see that things are being set up, right? It's allowed to be marinated. The broadcasters are talking about it. There's a real noise for it. There's no noise for this from PBC. Spence, fair play, has said he wants to fight, but there's nothing else, right? If this fight was going to happen next, Crawford would already be signed with them. Right, that's it. He'd have been in the ring and it would have been announced after the fight. That's how you make it into a big fight. This geezer, the guy, Timothy, whatever his name is at PBC, he's saying the fight isn't worth it commercially, basically. That's what he's saying. He's saying the economics don't stack up, right? So then build it into a fight. If it was going to happen, they would have made sure that Bud was in the ring. And people say, oh, Bud doesn't come ringside and all that bullshit. Right? They want to maximise this fight, right? So there's nothing better. Could you imagine the noise and the eyeballs and the viewing figures if Bud would have got in that ring after that fight and said, I want you, Spence. And Spence said the same thing. I think that my coffee out there. And Spence said the same thing, right? Could you imagine the noise and the collision there would have been on then? It would have sent shockwaves through boxing. Everyone would have been on board, would have been talking about it, right? Now it's just a case of, yeah, it's been talked about, but it's been forgotten about pretty quickly as well. Because PBC aren't marinating the fight and they're looking at it as, well, Bud's not their fighter. He's not been built into a pay-per-view star. And fair play, he probably hasn't from Top Rank, to be quite honest with you. He's not. So I can understand that. But it ain't happening next, the fight. It's not. what I think will happen, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. I have the balls to put my opinions out there, the strong opinions, right? There's no hate involved. There's no personal emotions involved. It's just my opinion, backed up from years and years and years of watching the sport, being around the sport, being around certain fighters. So I collect data, right, and I store it up here, and then I give my opinion, right? I don't get it right all the time, but I do get it right a lot of the times, right? And that's not me blowing my own trumpet, but that's just the fact of things. And I'm telling you, I don't think this fight will happen next. And if I'm wrong, I'm more than happy for people to click this up. And I hope I eat humble pie. I hope that I look like a dick, right, for saying this. And I hope I'm fucking wrong. I really do. But I can't see anything to suggest the fight's going to happen next. Do you know what I think what will happen? It will be Keith Thurman and Errol Spence. That's what will happen next, because why are they going to put him in with Bud next? PBC. Errol Spence now has proved his popularity is gone through the roof now, because he's been a bit inactive, right? He had the accidents, he had the eye injury. People thought, is he going to be the same again? Including myself. I thought that would be a big impact on the fight with Ugas, and I was wrong, right? I hold my hands up. I was wrong. I was right about you guys catching him with a right hand. You have to be careful of that. But I was wrong about the fight. I hold my hand up. Spence blew me away. Didn't think he would be able to be as sharp as he was and throw as many punches. And he did. Fair play. You have to look at it now objectively. And I think Spence winning that fight as good as he has, I think it's pushed the fight back. Because now they're gonna think PBC. They're gonna think we've got a big star now on our hands, right? He's always been a star, but he's the biggest star now, and he's proved how good he is. We want to keep maximising that. We want to keep draining the money. Draining and draining and draining. It's like if you have a towel and you squeeze the towel and squeeze every last drop. And that's what they want to do with Spence, PBC. They want to squeeze every last drop out of him. They ain't putting him with Bud next, because they know that's a fight he could lose. They know that's a fight, and I don't believe he wins that fight. I believe Bud beats him. He's that good of a fighter. And why are they going to risk it when you can fight Keith Thurman again in a stadium, in a football stadium? They're not, are they? There's two scenarios I can see playing out here, right? And this is what I believe is going to happen. First one is, I think Errol Spence will become undisputed, but he won't fight Bud. I think Bud will vacate. I think Bud will vacate and move up, right? Leaving the belt free so we can say I'm undisputed. Or I could see Errol Spence moving up, right? And Bud fighting for the undisputed belts. I don't think they'll fight each other next. I can't see it. If it was going to happen, right, I don't care what anyone says, he would have been in the ring, right? Because BBC would have wanted to maximise that as much as possible. The fact that he never tells me that this fight ain't happening next. And then what Spence's fans are going to say then? You're going to buy into the bullshit? PBC don't care. Because if they're getting a football stadium filled full of fans against Keith Thurman, why are they going to give a fuck what fans say, what hardcore fans say? They won't. There won't be a backlash in boxing. They should be. But Spence will have his fans and they'll keep supporting him. Somewhere along the line, you've got to look at bullshit, right? And you can smell it, can't you? You can see it. You've got to look and see what's in front of you. They don't want this fight. I'm going to keep saying it, and as I keep saying, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But it's not me. It's not me being a Spence hater. I'm just looking at what's going on in the picture. And traditionally, when big fights are being set up, they're marinated, aren't they? And we'll just get fed bullshit. We'll get fed. If they do sign Bud, they'll say, we need to make this fight bigger, so we're going to get Bud to fight a few fights and build him up. We're going to build him into a pay-per-view star, top ranked in it, but we will. So that'll be the narrative, right? Or it'll be undisputed. It'll be, we're only going to sign you, but if you move up and you let Spence fight for the belts, right? Or Spence moves up and Bud fights for the undisputed. One of them will become undisputed. They just won't fight each other next. And this is what I really believe will happen. I've watched boxing for that long. I can see when bullshit's coming. And PBC, bullshit fans. That's what they do. They want to keep everything in house. They want a UFC model. That's what the whole PBC ethos was. That's what the mission statement was, the plan. When PBC was launched, it was all free to air TV, right? It's going to be It's going to reach homes in every state in America. You're going to watch it prime time on free to TV. Right, you don't have to pay for it. It's not going to be pay-per-view. People can go home and watch it, even if it's a weekday, 6 o'clock on a Thursday, and watch boxing. That's what it was. If you look at the first event, I remember there was no actual ring announcer. There was no MC, right? Because they did a poll saying, what annoys you about fights? I think some idiots wrote back saying, we don't like ring announcers or something. And if you watch the first 3 PBC events, they had the same setup, and they had no ring announcer. There was no one in the ring, and I'm pretty sure, I think they all had the same music at one point. They might have done, I'm not 100% sure now, but I know there was no MC at first. Obviously, it was fucking ridiculous, and that got squashed pretty quickly. But PBC want to keep everything in the house. They want to be the UFC of boxing, and they're the closest in promotional terms to doing that. That's why they won't work with anyone else. They're buying. That's why they sign a lot of fighters in certain divisions. Welterweight divisions have got sewn up. So that's what their plan is. And the fact that there's stars outside of PBC, they don't give a fuck. Look what they're doing with Tank Davis. How can you not go after Kambosos for the undisputed belts? That tells you everything you need to know. You're telling me they're saying they've got the biggest star in boxing, right? They've got the most talented fighter in boxing, but they don't want to put him in an undisputed fight. And you think they're going to put him in with Bud next? You think they're going to put Spence with Bud next? Come on. Look what's in front of your eyes, right? I'm telling you, it's Keith Thurman next. That's who Errol Spence will fight next. Whether an injury comes for Bud, whether it's mandatory, whether Santa Claus has come and sorted it out, whatever excuse they want to put, or we get fed, will be bollocks, right? And I'm telling you, Keith Thurman and Errol Spence will happen next. I hope I'm fucking wrong, and I hope I look like a dickhead and people clip this up. I hope I am, and I'll be more than happy to hold my hands up. But it stinks for me, this. It really does, because you just got to look at things. I'm going to keep pointing back to this. If this fight was going to happen next, they'd be on radios, they'd be on TV stations, there'd be a noise. Spence would be coming out saying that he'd have been at ringside. It would have been a clash of two forces, right? Bang, right? Everyone would have been speaking about it. Why didn't it happen? Because they have no intention of making that fight next. They have no intention. They've got a cash cow in Spence now. They're a cash cow. Why are they going to want to risk it? They're not. They're going to, as I say, they're going to squeeze it and squeeze it and squeeze it. And they'll push it off for another year. Bud is 34. Right, so they will push it for another year, 2 years. They might want to fight him when he's 36, where there's another 2 years on him. I know he's not an old 34, but at the end of the day, if you get to 35, 36, you're going to lose something, aren't you? And they've done this before. They have history. Look what they did with Mayweather and Pacquiao. Come on. And you're telling me all of a sudden this great fight is going to happen next. Look at history. History tells you, right, that PBC don't bow under pressure. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. If you're going to fill out a stadium, or if you're going to fill out an arena, right, fighting anyone but Bud Crawford, they're going to keep letting that happen. They're going to keep letting it happen, right? And that's just the truth of it. This is no hate. I like Errol Spence, right? He's an elite fighter. I think Bud beats him. But I can see what's in front of me, and PBC don't want this fight next. They don't. They'll drag it out and drag it out and drag it out and drag it out. That's what will happen. If it does happen, it'll be when Bud's 36, 37. Right? I'm telling you, I've gone through the scenarios. I've told you either Bud moves up or Spence moves up. Whoever moves up, whoever doesn't make a difference. Because for me, one of them will be undisputed. It just won't be against each other. I can see Spence moving up, and Bud, he could sign a 3-fight deal, and to get all the other belts, if Spence vacates, then there's fights. There's your 3 fights for your IBF belt, the WBC, WBA. There you go. It stinks for me. It really does. And the lack of talk from PBC suggests to me that this fight isn't happening. So we'll see, right? You can argue as much as you like. I can give my opinion, right? But there's no excuse for this fight not to happen next. Fans have to cause a backlash, right? If this fight doesn't happen next, fans have to cause a backlash, because it won't be because of Bud, it will be because of Spence. They'll say everything. He doesn't bring anything commercially. The numbers aren't too high and all this, and it's bollocks, right? Look what's in front of your eyes. Let me know what you think. Do you think this fight will happen next? Am I talking bollocks? Am I talking the truth? Time will tell. Like, comment, subscribe, let me know.